So here in the United Kingdom, it's the 18th of April, so we're 2 days past the school offer day, National School Offer Day, where kids in the UK, specifically wanting to focus on those who are starting school for the first time, get given their offer of their reception, their reception school place, or their primary school place rather. And basically, I haven't received an offer, and that's because I deferred my child last year and had to do that in writing through the post. So I did put in an application for my daughter, who we deferred because we didn't want her to start school at 4 years old, and because we are very seriously considering home education for our little ones. And so, however, I did put the offer in because, I did apply for a school place because we previously applied in the year where she turned 4, and we moved to a new town, and there was a lots of change. I started a new job, I graduated, there was a lot of change going on for us as a family. And aside from the fact that we've always considered home education, I was home educated, but also because we are not overly happy about sending our child into the mainstream school situation, and that's for a variety of reasons, which I'm happy to go into if you'd like me to speak on why we actually want to home educate our child in another video. Please do like, comment, and subscribe, and let me know that you'd like to hear those insights. And I might touch on that a little bit right now, but really I just wanted to say kind of our process and what we've done. So we deferred my child at 4 years old. She was meant to start in September after she turned 4. However, in the UK, compulsory school age, so that's the legal school age within which a child has to start, is actually not until the September after their 5th birthday. So my daughter will be 5 this year, and she will then be expected to be starting mainstream school. However, here in the UK, what a lot of people don't understand or know is that actually, if you don't apply for a school place, you do not need to send your child to school, and that is because the legal responsibility is of the parent to educate their child in the way that they see fit. However, of course, conventionally, most people will send their children to mainstream school the first September that they can. So that's whether their child is 4 or of compulsory school age. Even deferral seems to be quite rare, but also growing, which is wonderful. But yes, deferring our child was a big decision at that time. And again, many people didn't maybe understand our choices, but the ones who get it, they get it. And we try to make sure that we're informed and watch things about home educators, and watch things and be in groups and things that show us that this is very normal for many, many families. But anyway, what that meant was we applied for a school place. We had to seek permission of the school to allow our daughter to start um, out of years, what they call it, out of her age group. Even though this September, if she were to start, she's going to be with 5-year-olds, and she's going to be 5. She'll just happen to be what they call out of age group, even though she's with other 5-year-olds predominantly. She may be one of the older 5-year-olds, but again, that would be what happens if she had started last year. She would be the youngest, and there would be maybe some older 5-year-olds. So again, very typical, very normal of any classroom setup for a 5-year-old, of course, to be in reception. So that is essentially why we applied. We had to apply for a school last year, and we had to request that they would be willing to allow her to start in reception. Some schools are willing, and some local authorities are willing to allow you to defer, but they often will say to you, or pressure you, in my opinion, try to kind of influence you and change your mind by telling you that if you do defer your child, they will be unable to start in reception year. Now, of course, when you're a parent who is considering deferring your child, it's because you likely feel that either your child isn't ready to start school or to be in that kind of formal academic learning environment, or it's because you don't believe in that formal academic learning environment for children that young. And in a lot of countries, of course, like for example, I believe it's Danish children, they don't start school until they are 7 years old. And it is very much the norm that children do play-based learning and they're outside in nature and all of those kinds of things. Free play are very much valued within kind of those parts of the world, which again are reported to have the happiest people and children and, do very well academically, even though their formal academic learning journey starts later than we do here in the United Kingdom. So, yes, regardless of your reasoning, you might decide that you want to defer your child. And if you do defer your child, you would then have to speak to the school directly to see that they would be willing to give your child a space in their out of age group. So we did all of that. We went through that process. The school agreed that she would be able to start in reception year, which was really important to us because we would not want her to then have to start in year one where it becomes even more formally academic. Although there have been a lot of changes with the recent government where, again, I think that more formal academic learning is happening much younger within UK schools now. So, again, even sending your child to reception, there's going to be an element and expectation that your child is going to be able to sit down and do kind of work at a table. Potentially, they're going to be practicing their handwriting, learning their letters, all of those kinds of things, which again can start in preschool, but in a very much kind of more childlike way. So yes, we were essentially given the thumbs up by the school, by the local authority in our new area that we could defer her and she could start in reception this coming September. So what that meant was that we had to then put in another application, but because she was out of her age group, we were not able to do that online, as it usually is done in this day and age, through a portal or an online account for the local authority. And then what would happen usually is that you would receive your school offer letter on the National School Offer Day, which is April the 16th. So of course, 2 days later, we haven't received that because we did what we call a paper application, which actually was not really a paper application. It was digital. We had to fill out the paper application. We took a picture of it and we emailed it to the local authority, who then obviously explained to us that our offer would come in the post. However, being a very busy mom, ODHD, I completely forgot what the heck I did 8 months ago. I was like, why haven't we had our offer? Why haven't we had our offer? And I had to go back to look at those emails, look at all the things that was going on at that time and just understand what that process was. But in some ways we were like, maybe it's a sign. Maybe it's a sign I didn't actually put the application in. Yes, we're home education. We're home educating. Amazing. That's what we're doing. The decision has been made for us, which I don't know if it's my ADHD, but I kind of was really relieved and happy that the decision has been made for me, because I thought I forgot to put this application in, but turns out I had not forgotten. It is just that we will receive our offer through a letter. But all that being said, we are quite adamant and very passionate and strongly desire to home educate my daughter and my son. I feel that learning happens all the time. I think we have been home educating them all of this time. My daughter has barely spent any time in nursery, a very short stint in nursery. And, we had challenges through 2 different nurseries. We went to try a third and we just kind of said, no, it's not for us. And we just said, we're just going to sacrifice and we're going to do what we've got to do for this time. And we know that it will pay off for us in the long term. Is it easy? No, it's not. Do we feel sometimes that we are burnt out because, we have our children with us at all times or with one of us at all times? Absolutely. Now, I work 4 days a week and, I have some flexibility to work from home at times, but really ideally it is preferred that we are on site. So I kind of do that. I do what I'm allowed to do. I am a stickler for rules, so I do go on site and do what needs to be done. But for sure, that is something that I find quite challenging. And my husband, he is flexible to be able to do more working from home because he's, building his business, and he is essentially our primary caregiver and has the children. So yes, absolutely, he does feel burnt out at times. Um, but again, we are clearly a neurodivergent family, and there's a lot more things to consider. And as much as we are at times tired and exhausted, we are also so content and happy, and we feel secure and safe knowing that our children are with us, or at least with one of us. And that has really been, for me personally, as a mom, sorry, my microphone, as a mom who is working, it's just reassuring to know that they are safe with their dad, rather than with strangers and people that I don't know from a can of peas. But anyway, a bit more on that process. So what happened was that after going back through these emails, I had emailed the lady at the local authority to let them know that, because I wanted to kind of just throw it out there and see what the reaction would be from this new local authority that we're living in, because our old local authority really tries to kind of um, discourage parents, I would say, from home educating or deferring and all of those kinds of things. So I wanted to see what the new local authority would be like. So I just threw it out there that we've applied for a school place, but it's likely that we are going to home educate our child. I'm just awaiting, a change of hours at work, and that is kind of the reason why I would like to put a school application in, just in case. How would you advise that we go about this? Do we need to get in contact with the school or yourselves if we don't want the place? What happens? And she essentially, no issue at all. I mean, this local authority has a home education page. They talk about how they want to work with parents, all of those different things. They request that you give them your home education plan annually and all of those kinds of things. But they have kind of a home education team, it would seem, and of course within the home education community, it's highly frowned upon. Don't engage with the local authority. Don't tell them anything that you don't need to tell them. Don't invite them into your home. Don't let them see your child. All of these different things. If you go onto some of the Facebook groups and social media, and just home education spaces, it's very much that is a lot of the advice that is given. And unfortunately, sometimes I do think that has led to some of the situation that home educators are finding themselves in now, which is that the Children's Wellbeing Bill, I believe it's called, is coming in, and there are a lot of new rules that are coming into play for home that are going to impact home educators and their children. And the way that it's currently written now, it hasn't been fully passed through yet, but it's likely to become law by September. And it's that, for example, all home educated children will have to go on a register. There's currently no need to register. You just don't register your child for a school place, and therefore you are now a home educator. There is no national curriculum that you have to follow. Home education is what you make it, what you think is appropriate for you, at your family, your child. The words appropriate education for your child is how it's kind of been framed. And so that means that there is some subjectivity around that, and the way that people can choose to educate their children is different, which is why here in the UK, you'll often find home educators be very, very touchy about the word home education or home editing, because they don't like it to be referred to as homeschool, because they feel that sends a message that they are trying to kind of create school at home, recreate mainstream school at home, which is often what many home editing families in the UK do not do. So I tend to watch American content creators who are home educators, American families, as well as kind of UK-based families, world schoolers, all of it, because I sit somewhere in the middle. Having been a home educated child who was very much deschooled, but has done pretty okay for myself. Again, my deschooling was not necessarily intentional. I don't know that the people who were home educating me really understood the concept of deschooling. That just was what it was after a time. And this meant that I feel that has obviously at the time, I really didn't understand that. I struggled. I felt like I was missing out. I was missing out socially. I was missing out in so many different ways. Now I understand that people who home educate appropriately and properly, socialization, for example, the argument that is always brought up, is just not an issue in this day and age. There's a much larger home editing community, and specifically where I live, there is a home education community, which we have yet to get too involved in outside of, social media groups, but would like to, maybe start to explore some of those things come September when my daughter is at compulsory school age. But I think it's so important, especially for me as a neurodivergent woman and Black woman and Black home educator, that I'm able to find my tribe. There are many reasons why people choose to home educate: their values, their beliefs, feeling that mainstream school, for example, is teaching a woke curriculum. That is not my reasoning for wanting to home educate. I believe in inclusivity. I believe in treating people with kindness, dignity, and respect. I believe in, the idea of British values and all of these things. So for me, I would like my children to be worldly and have an understanding of different people and cultures and different family structures and makeups. Um, so that, for example, meeting home ed people who that is their ethos, and or maybe they're highly religious and they feel that they don't like what's being taught. That is not necessarily going to be my home educating tribe of people. So equally, I'm a Black mother, home educator in a predominantly white area, and again, are those people going to be my people? So it's just trying to find, and again, we're an interracial family, so I am very much, very used to being around white people. Um, I have no challenges in terms of kind of communicating and interacting, and even many of my friends are white people, so it's not about that. But it's again in this current socio-political context where we've got reform and we've got far right stuff going on. Where do people sit? Where do they stand? And what are they teaching their children? And why are they taking their children out of school? Is it because they believe a little bit more in that the anti-immigration, all of those things? I've spoken about these topics in some of my other videos if you want to check them out, but so that you understand what my stance is on certain things. But I just feel like, navigating, and again, as a neurodivergent woman, navigating those spaces and trying to figure out who's safe for my children to be around. I think that's gonna, it's gonna take a lot, but I'm definitely willing to push myself out of my comfort zone for the sake of my kids, because again, as I say, socialization is so easy to do in this day and age, if you are willing to just put yourself a little bit outside of your comfort zone, for your kids. And again, socialization within the mainstream school system isn't very natural, to have all of the children pushed together in their same age group and forced to be around children that they maybe like, don't like, or would never maybe engage with in another setting, without adding that context and that nuance. And, that's how bullying happens. And that's why I understand the need to teach British values within the school system, is because we want to teach that, difference is okay and we should accept people who are different to us. But again, that teaching doesn't stop in the classroom. It needs to carry itself at home, and I don't think it does. So that's, again, another reason why I am not wanting to send my child to mainstream school. As multiracial children, half Black, half white, to be fair, half Black, half white is probably not giving you enough of the layers and context of my children, but essentially they present as multiracial Black and white children, and are multiracial Black and white children. But my husband's heritage is, he is a multiracial person himself, but probably white presenting. So that's why I say there's some layers to that. But yeah, from an identity perspective, from a where do they belong and who, again, lack of diversity in the educators themselves, where we are, and I think where we used to be as well. It was very rare to see a Black or even brown teacher, and that has been in the multiple schools that we have visited. And I really struggle with that. I also work within higher education, and it is the same. I am, the one Black representative, Black female, as in monoracial Black person within my team. And There are two other global ethnic majority team members that I also have in my team, but we have a very large team. I'm talking about 16 people. So it just gives you some context. And I think, that the education system and teachers should reflect and represent the people that they are teaching. And so again, within my role in at higher education, we're fortunate to have a very diverse student body, and our team doesn't always reflect the diversity that is within our student body. And I think that is really missing a trick. So I think schools in the UK need to do better on that front, and perhaps this is about bringing more global ethnic majority people into the profession. But from what I can tell, and when I look in other places, it doesn't seem to be a problem. So I don't know how much that is about the region that I'm in or the areas that I've been in. But again, I live in diverse areas, essentially diverse areas, of course, predominantly white, but essentially diverse. Diverse enough that you would expect to see at least one in the school, at least one. But anyway, lots of different reasons why we have chosen to home educate. I say chosen to home educate, and I'm a little bit stumbling on my words because I'm still up in the air about it. I just want to make sure that I do the right thing by my children. I am still awaiting the change in my hours that is going to ensure for me that I'm going to be able to do this and give my kids what they're going to need and what I would like to be able to give as a mother in general, but also as a home educator. I'm really excited about this next chapter, and I'm really hoping for the hour change to go through. If it doesn't, I might have to rethink things, to be honest, because at this point in stage in my life, my children are my priority. I love them to absolute bits, and I miss out on so much just for the fact that I'm a working mom, and I would just love to be able to pour into them in this way and have these experience and just, you know, be there for them and have them remember me as a present and engaged mother and, build those relationships and maintain those relationships. And as I say, it is not easy. It is literally a lifestyle choice, and it's something that it's not for everyone. And I understand that not everybody can kind of choose to home educate. In fact, we're kind of uncertain whether we're able to, as I say, in terms of work and finances, all of these different things. It is going to be a sacrifice for us. We are not privileged in any way, shape, or form in that regards. But it is definitely something, I suppose, through being home educated myself, that I'm able to normalize and see as a possibility and know that even with my deschooling and, the gaps I had in my education, that I was still able to kind of push myself and actually probably have a lot more motivation than even some of my peers because I didn't have this negative experience of the education system. And I was very excited and happy to be there and be in a classroom. And even though I was an adult learner and I already had a child and I had my second child in my going into my first placement, I was pregnant. And that was intentional and planned. And it was just a beautiful time. And I really enjoyed the process of that, even though it was hard work. It wasn't an easy degree to complete, but I was very much driven by my interest, of course, in my subject area, but also I think just being able to finally feel that I was doing the things that I had always wanted to do, but felt that I wasn't able to do due to my own personal circumstances with my upbringing, and having to motivate myself to do it, and having that motivation and not having, I suppose, almost this. I wasn't jaded about education. I'm a little bit more jaded about education now. I'm not gonna lie. I see a different side to it working within it, and I see again the intersectional experiences of people and the challenges with inclusivity and diversity and all of these things, and again epistemology in general, and whose knowledge is valued as important and right and needing to be known and taught versus what things don't get taught. And so that I can understand some of that jadedness that students come into higher education with. And if they've been navigating those systems for years and years and years, I can only really now empathize and understand that maybe that burnout or even that lack of motivation or sense of what is what is the point, I guess? So, yeah, I don't want my children to feel that way. I want them to have a love of learning, and I want them to see learning as valuable and important. Education is valuable and important. And I also want them to see themselves represented. And what better way than to do that through myself and my husband? And also, again, obviously what we can add into their curriculum and what we can teach them and who we show them and the representation we give them and the history we teach them. And all of these things are so, so important to me. And I'm really excited and hopeful that we do actually go through with this journey. I'm not going to lie, very scared to commit to this and say it out loud, like, yes, I am a home educator. This is what we're doing come September. Very scared, especially on the hard days. On the hard days, you think, can we do this? Are we able to do this? But as I say, I watch a lot of home editors, content creators, and I'm so grateful for them because they just show you uh, the realities. Yes, content creation is usually beautiful and it's all packaged up nicely. And you, of course, get content creation like that. And you do think, oh my goodness, am I going to be up to scratch? Can I do this in the way that these people do this? I mean, people are doing this with like 10 plus kids, some of them. But in some ways that encourages me. I'm like, if you can teach, whether a day in the life of you as a home editor really looks like this, you have 10 kids and you've got them all at home and you're alive and you're well and your children are well and you're surviving. And that in itself can be encouraging. So, yeah, that is where we're at with National School Offer Day. We haven't had a letter yet. We might get it probably on Monday. It's now Saturday. But yeah, I'll let you know how I feel when that letter comes through. But yeah, my husband and I are pretty adamant. And when you think of the current world and where we're at and how everything feels so uncertain and we don't even know where we're going to be in the next 6 months. And I mean that scares the life out of me. That's another context of this. Life is so uncertain. Security, lack of security, food security, finance security, economic security, everything that is going on in this world geopolitically right now, the wars, all of it, it really does put life into perspective. And all I want to do is keep my babies close and teach them what I need to teach them. And I feel strongly that I can do that. I just need to organize myself and also maintain home education mindset. As far as going onto a register and maybe having to share home education plans and things like that, I actually think that that will keep me to task in a way that I probably want to be kept to task. But equally, I do think it's an infringement on the rights of home educating parents, and specifically those who have been doing this for a long time. If that is to happen, you need to have people who are, again, diverse in their views around and have an understanding of what education can look like and not have one view, which is mainstream school, as the standard of what good education looks like. So I think that's really important. And of course, I do think there's subjectivity, and I do think that people are definitely going to be impacted by these new laws and rules. And so I just hope that all home educators out there are doing okay. And I couldn't envision if I had been doing something a set way for a number of years, that then because this new law comes in that gives these local authorities so much more power and allows them to give you, to tell you what you should and shouldn't be doing in terms of your child's education, how if your child specifically is used to a certain way and then you have to kind of change and adapt that to essentially please these local authorities who are often going to come with their own biases. There's so much that can go wrong with this. And so I completely understand why people are so upset and so against this change. And again, as I say, it's not come into law as yet, but it's something that is likely going to happen. As I say, as a home educated child who was deschooled, maybe not intentionally, but also was within a very tumultuous upbringing, childhood, and abusive situation, I do understand the safeguarding element, but I don't think that is a home education problem. I think that is a problem with abusive parents and people. And again, children who are in mainstream school fall through the cracks all the time. In fact, they're often known to social services, they're known to their local authority, and they still fall through the cracks. So it is not a home education problem, and I do think it is unfortunate that it is being created as one. or being portrayed as one. But again, as I say, as a person who cares very deeply about children, and wants to protect all children, I think that um, had there been a register when I was a child, maybe there would have been things that might have been noticed and acknowledged and picked up that were going on for myself and siblings um, at the time. So I I don't know. Again, you know, we're all different individuals. We all have different mindsets. We're all coming from different experiences and contexts and nuance, and we are not a monolith as home educators, which is why I really struggle sometimes with some of these home education groups, because they really do push this idea that we should all see things in the same way. And I unfortunately think that that is kind of not helpful and problematic, because again, we all have our different backgrounds and our different reasonings for why we may do things. For example, Black parents might choose to engage with the local authority because they understand that there is already a bias against them. There is already a consideration that they are not doing what they should be doing, and that actually to push back might put them and their families at more risk. And I think sometimes white home educators don't consider that nuance and why some people choose to engage, whilst others maybe have the privilege not to. So just a thought that maybe some home educators should consider that that's what's going on for a lot of people. And it's not a case of, it's about keeping themselves safe and keeping their families safe, because they know that even small things are going to be pulled up on, or maybe the neighbor is going to see their children out outside of school hours, and it's going to ring social services. But for the next white parent and family, that's not necessarily going to happen. So there's sometimes reasons why people make themselves known to the local authority, and really it's just coming from as a protective factor to protect themselves, and to also show, yeah, this is what we're doing and this is who we are, and kind of stop that bias, and hopefully break some of those stereotypes. But yes, I think I have said enough on this topic for now. If you want to hear any more home education content, please let me know, because it is something that I'm hoping to kind of get more into, as we make this decision to go on this amazing journey of home education officially with our little one come September. Anyway, stay regal in real life. Lovely to talk to you. Please like, comment, subscribe if you like this video, if it resonates with you, if you can share any tips on home education. We would really appreciate it as we move into this journey. Anyway, see you later. Bye.